Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We are live from Portland, Oregon. Thank you very much for participating in our first pre-arrival webinar in 2021. And of course, welcome to Portland State University. My name is Yoko Honda, and I am an international student life advisor and a coordinator for international student orientation at PSU. We are very excited to welcome you in September as you start your first term at PSU. Today's webinar is recorded and it will be shared with you after the session. And we will have about 50 minutes at the end of the webinar to address your questions. So you can ask questions by typing them into the chat box throughout the webinar. Please do not use the raise your hand function. The chat function allows you and all participants to see the questions that are being asked, which is helpful for everybody. So please use that platform to ask your questions. I will moderate the questions you type and we'll answer them live after the presentation. If there are highly personalized questions relating specifically to your case, we may ask you to follow up with our office after the webinar. Okay. In today's webinar, we will go over introduction of presenters, before you travel, fall 2021 immigration updates, COVID-19 vaccine requirements, class registration and academic advising, Office of a Graduate School, international student mentor support, and Q&A. So today we are joined by 4 expert panelists who will be giving you important information that will help you prepare for the full term. I would like to ask my colleague to introduce themselves. And first, Emmanuel, please.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Abdul, and I'm an international student mentor leader and a PhD student in chemistry.
Hi, my name is Joshua Davis. I'm the Assistant Director of International Student and Scholar Services. So I work with F1 and J1 students who are attending Portland State University.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Piper. I'm the Assistant Director for International Student Recruitment and Outreach, and welcome to the presentation.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Mike Ture, and I'm one of the international evaluators in the admission section of the graduate school.
Thank you, everyone. Now that we've introduced you to our team, we would like to get a sense of who is in the audience. I will be sending you a couple of poll questions to answer. So we'll just take a minute to get those responses. And let me get that poll questions. Okay, so we would like to know the demographics first. What is your academic level? Which type of visa do you or will you have? Do you already have a visa? Where are you now? Just let us know where you are right now accessing our webinar today. We'll just take maybe 20 more seconds or so that you have time to read it and answer those questions. All right, I am going to end the poll for this one. And let me share this with you. Oh, it looks like a majority of you are graduate students and F1 students. Some J1 exchange students are available here. And it looks like a half and a half. Half of you have a visa and half of you haven't gotten the visa yet. And then, oh, of course, majority of you are still in your home country, preparing for fall term. Great. And let me ask you another sets of question about fall term. Okay. So the first question is, what excites you the most about fall 2021 at PSU? So we listed some of the questions there, or not questions, answers there for you to answer. And if you don't find the ones that you are kind of thinking of, make sure to type in into chat. And the second question is, what is your biggest concern? Right? The COVID still is going on, and we're still experiencing the pandemic. And it's definitely a concern worldwide. And then we will close this one in maybe 30 more seconds or so. While we're waiting, presenters, what excites you the most about fall 2021? If you would like to share or can think of anything.
Well, I'll start. I'm very excited to see people's faces again in person after how long have we been virtual now? About
More
a
than a
year and a
year.
half. Yeah. So that's what I'm excited about.
Mhm.
I would have to agree with that. I'm really excited to be able to kind of be back around my colleagues and friends on campus. And I know it won't be exactly the same as it was before, but I've really missed that a lot over the last 18 months or however long it's been.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm looking forward to meeting colleagues that I haven't seen in over a year. We've been able to work successfully while we've been working remotely, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of things about working in person on campus that makes it easier to get work done, but also work with students directly. It's a lot easier, I think, to help students that way as well.
Emmanuel, you're already in your lab. Do you have anything that that excites you the most about coming back?
Yeah, I would really, really love to meet people again and then be able to pop in to use equipment any time of the day. Because now I have to schedule my time, but it used to be just popping in anytime before. So I'm really looking forward to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, presenters, for sharing. So I just shared with you the poll results. So it sounds like the gaining new experience is something that you are most excited about in the fall. And then of course, the COVID is the biggest concern for all of us. Yeah. Thank you so much for everybody. All right. Okay, so first, Matt will share important information to know before you travel to Portland.
Yeah, thank you, Yoko. So hello, everybody out there. And again, we're really excited to welcome you this fall. I know you've been getting a million emails from us, reminders to do all kinds of stuff. So I hope that this short list will be helpful for you to let you know a few things that you have to do before you leave your country. And again, the full list of everything you need to do, we actually have a checklist for admitted international students, which is on our website. So please check that. That's a really great resource, but I'll just go through a few of them today. And the first one is, and this is for F1 undergraduate students only. So all you graduate students out there can cover your ears, but the first thing that the undergraduate students need to do is confirm your enrollment. So I think most of you have done this already, but if you have not confirmed your enrollment, it's super easy. There's no cost. It just takes a few minutes of your time clicking a few buttons and letting us know that you are planning to come here. So that's, again, that's for F1 undergraduate students only. Please let us know you're coming, and that will kick in the next steps. And then for everybody out there, I see from the poll that many of you already have your student visa. Congratulations on that. That's really great news. For those of you who have not applied yet, we always recommend applying at least 1 month before the program start date on your I-20. So if you haven't applied for your student visa, it's time to start that process. And if you have questions about that, we're always happy to help. The next thing on the list is submitting your MMR form. That stands for measles, mumps, and rubella. This is a form that our Student Health and Counseling Center requires students to submit. So it's probably easier to get your MMR vaccinations in your home country. So please do that as soon as possible. And you can submit it directly to the Student Health and Counseling Center via the email on the form, which I think is vaccines@pdx.edu. But that's something that you'll need to do to not have a registration hold. So please submit that so you can register for classes. Speaking of registering for classes, that is something you definitely should do as soon as possible. There's always time to adjust or add or drop classes. But the most important thing is registering for a full-time course load in order to maintain your student visa. So if you haven't started that process yet, I always recommend talking to an academic advisor before you do that. But please get registered for a full-time course load as soon as possible. And the second to last thing on the list is signing up for International Student Orientation, which I think will be run by Yoko, right? Yeah, so that's coming up sooner than you think. That will be September 21st for graduate students and September 23rd for undergraduate and post-baccalaureate students. So please do that. That is mandatory for international students, and it's also super useful and fun, right? So please, and remember that's separate from the online orientation. So online orientation is something that all students have to do, domestic students, international students, but then international students all have to attend the International Student Orientation, which is very separate material that's very specific to you. And then the last thing I'll talk about is official documents. We may be waiting for official documents from you. So one thing that many students do is they request the official documents from their previous school in a sealed stamped envelope, and then they physically bring it with them on the airplane and deliver it to us unopened. So if we're still waiting for official documents from you, please do submit those, and you can submit them in person once you get here. Again, I just remind you, do not open the sealed envelope from your school, otherwise they'll become unofficial like magic. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. So I think I'm passing it on to Josh.
Thanks, Matt. So I'm going to talk about some of the major immigration concerns just kind of that will be impacting you. So the first thing that we want to talk about, kind of related to Matt's excellent advice that you should register for a full course of study as soon as possible. One thing that a lot of students have been concerned about is, being in classrooms and the availability of online courses. So one thing to know is that normally students can only have one fully online course as part of their full course of study each term. But because we are still kind of in the thick of this COVID pandemic, the adaptations that the government has made to help students make sure that they can still enroll during this time are still in place. And that basically means that students can have now more than one fully online course as part of their full course of study. However, we are requiring that students have at least one in-person course. It should be a regular course, so typically 3 or 4 credits, depending on your program of study. 3 credits is more common in some graduate programs, and 4 credits is the most common sort of regular course at PSU. So you should have at least one in-person course as part of your full course of study. So 12 credits if you're an undergraduate, or 9 credits if you're a graduate student. There are a couple of different ways that that instructional method is described on the website. So Kyoko can advance the slide. We'll kind of go through those really quickly. The easiest, of course, is in person, and that class is always going to be meeting in a classroom several times a week, usually 2 to 3 for 1 to 1.5 hours, depending on whether it's 2 or 3 meetings per week. There may be some online work through D2L, which is the learning management software that PSU uses, but most of the interactions and assignments for the course will happen in the classroom. Hybrid courses are a little bit different. So they are a bit more weighted towards that online learning component, but there will still be several required course meetings over the course of the term. So it might be that it meets every other week or on certain scheduled days that will be kind of listed when you register for the course. Those will be part of the class schedule. So on the next slide, we'll talk about, so there are kind of what we're calling remote course delivery methods. And there are 2 of those. So there's remote with scheduled meetings, and these are basically live lectures, but they're all taking place by Zoom or a similar online platform. So in that case, you would be listening to the lecture live as though it were an in-person course, but you're going to be doing that on your computer from some other location. Sort of the other remote delivery method that we have is remote classes without a specific meeting time. So these are kind of what we would also call asynchronous classes, which means that you can kind of listen, the lectures are recorded, you can listen to them kind of at any time on your schedule. And then on the last page, this one, we'll talk about some what we're calling online course delivery methods. So the primary one, which existed before COVID, is a fully online course. And these are basically classes that have been designed for online delivery. So the remote scheduling option was something we kind of came up with during COVID to try and deliver course content, but these online classes have been designed that way from the ground up. So they will always be taking place in D2L and by email with the instructor. There is an additional fee per credit for any of these fully online courses, which is $35 per credit. That should be about $140 if it's a 4-credit course. And then the last kind of online course delivery method would be the attend anywhere. And this one's a little bit confusing because it's actually kind of a combination of in-person and remote, in that the classrooms where those courses are being taught are classrooms that are also kind of set up to have that possibility of live streaming the lecture and the course meeting. And so a student who's registered for one of those classes would theoretically have the choice of attending in person or attending remotely. And they can make that choice on a daily basis. They could say, I'm going to go to class this day. Oh, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to stream today. And the problem with that from an immigration perspective is that if the class does not require in-person attendance, which that class modality does not, then it's technically considered an online course under the F1 regulations. So you do kind of have to be careful about this. Again, for the fall term and for the rest of the academic year, this won't be a huge problem because students can have more than one fully online course. But it's probably going to be the case that that attend anywhere modality would be considered online. So you would still need to have a hybrid or in-person course in addition to any classes with that instruction method. And those are the instruction methods. Like if you're searching in the schedule of classes and you want to look by instructional method, these are the specific terms that you can search by in that system. So, and then if you could advance to the next slide. So we did want to talk a little bit about COVID travel restrictions. So there are currently some travel restrictions in place on travelers who have been physically present in Brazil, China, but not Hong Kong or the Macau special administrative regions, India, Iran, Ireland, the Schengen area, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. So anyone who has been physically present in one of those countries or territories within 14 days of trying to travel to the United States is not currently eligible to enter the United States. However, a special exception has been made for people who might be coming with F1 visas and potentially with J1 visas. So the US government has decided that it is in the interest of our country, our national interest, to allow students to travel to the United States in spite of these travel restrictions. And so it is possible for those students to receive what's called a national interest exception that waives that travel restriction and allows them to come even if they have been physically present in one of those countries or territories before they travel to the US. Next slide. So for F1 students, this is automatic. If you are if you have a valid F1 visa, so maybe if you're a transferring student and you're outside the United States, that valid F1 visa gives you the national interest exception. So you can travel to the US if you've been present or would be transiting through one of those countries or territories. If you're a new student for the fall term, when you receive your F1 visa, you would also receive with that a national interest exception to waive that travel restriction. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated for a J1 student. You are essentially having to make a separate request, but it's kind of folded into your visa application process. So if you're applying for your J1 visa, they will also consider that a request for a national interest exception. If your visa is granted, then you should also be granted that NIE waiver. And for J1 students, it is valid for 12 months or up to 12 months and for multiple entries. So if you, for example, wanted to go home during the winter break, you would not need to apply for a new NIE waiver in order to come back for the winter term if those travel restrictions were still in place. The one last thing that I will mention for any J1 students who might not be from one of those countries, but might be transiting through one of those countries. So if you're a J1 student from a country that doesn't have a travel restriction, but maybe you were having to transit through Europe, like Germany or Amsterdam or one of those major airports in Europe, you would become subject to that travel restriction by changing planes there. So if that is the case for you, you will absolutely need to request a separate NIE waiver from the US consulate or embassy closest to your point of origin, to your home, to make sure that you don't accidentally make yourself ineligible to enter the United States just by changing planes. And that is the end of my spiel for today.
Thank you so much, Josh. So before starting the next parts, I would like to let you know that this session is recorded and it will be shared with you after the session, along with the slides with all the links available, and also our contact information for more questions that you have. So I would like to share PSU COVID-19 vaccine requirements for fall 2021 and a vaccine clinics at PSU. To ensure everybody's safety, Portland State University will require all students attending in-person classes and all employees like ourselves working on campus to be vaccinated against COVID-19 starting fall term. PSU will accept all WHO approved vaccines, and the list you can take a look there after you get this presentation. If you received a non-WHO approved vaccine, please contact SHAC. SHAC is Center for Student Health and Counseling at askSHAC@pdx.edu. Before starting fall, you will need to submit PSU's COVID-19 vaccine requirement form. You can access this form from the link mentioned there and learn about more about the requirements and exemptions. If you haven't been vaccinated, you must plan to arrive in the US a full 30 days before the term begins so that you can get vaccinated before the term begins. SHAC will offer a vaccine clinic on August 27 for newly arrived students and a booster clinic for the second dose of vaccine on September 24th. Please complete the survey by August 20th to inform SHAC if you need to be vaccinated at these clinics. We want to ensure that we have enough vaccines available for you all. And for for more information about vaccine requirements, please contact SHAC at askshak@pdx.edu. And next is I would like to focus on class registration and academic advising because we want you to have a solid, good class schedule for your first term at PSU. As you know, here at PSU and any other colleges and universities in the United States, you register for classes on your own. So it is important for you to take necessary steps mentioned in the pre-arrival checklist, just like Matt mentioned before. The checklist was emailed to you, so please review it if you haven't done so yet. The checklist is also available on our website as well. We stress this part because the longer you wait, the less classes will be available for you to choose from. So it is important for you all to take actions now. The first thing is that make sure to take care of any hold on your account. As Matt mentioned about an MMR hold earlier, a hold prevents you from registering for classes. Depending on students, you may have multiple holds, such as financial document hold or CVIS hold if you're transferring from a different university or college in the United States. Your hold will be removed as soon as we have required information or documents from you. And you can check your student accounts through boundweb.pdx.edu if you have a hold or not, and how to take care of those hold and who to contact for that. As an international undergraduate student and a postbac student, you are required to register for 12 credits per term, which are about 3 classes that Josh mentioned before to maintain your immigration status in the United States. If you're a master's or doctoral student, you are required to register for 9 credits per term. Undergraduate students on F1 visa have to complete an online orientation module through the new student program. Upon completion and with no hold on your student account, you can register for classes. If you're not sure about, which classes to take, please contact your academic advisor in your major for assistance. Postbac, master's, or doctoral students on F1 or J1 visa, or J1 exchange students, you will be able to register for classes as long as you don't have any hold on your account. You can also contact your faculty advisor or academic advisor for class selection. Please note that International Student Orientation on September 21 and 23rd do not cover academic advising or class registration support. So we strongly encourage you to register for classes before attending International Student Orientation. Any university businesses will be communicated through PSU email, so something@pdx.edu. So please make a habit of checking your PSU email when you have access to it. To check important dates, please bookmark the academic calendar listed there. You will have time to work on your class schedule until the beginning of October, and you also have time to make a payment for the tuition and fees for fall term as well. Now, I would like to hand the baton to Mike from Graduate School, who will share the services that Graduate School offers for graduate students.
Thank you, Yoko. So basically, the graduate school kind of has 2 different wings to it. One is the graduate admissions office, which if you're a graduate student and you're in this webinar, you've worked with our side of the office. There's also the graduate academic services side, which basically works with students who have already been admitted and are basically submitting paperwork in order to submit or to fulfill their graduation requirements. as they finish their degrees. We are located in the Parkmill building, which is kind of on the northwest side of campus in Suite 184. We're currently closed, but the campus is opening on September 7th, and our office will be open at that point. So if you're coming to campus with questions or to turn in documents, for example, we'll be at that location, and we'll have fairly regular hours after September 7th. As Matt and Yoko both mentioned, there is usually a mandatory orientation session. Definitely for international students, there'll be the international student orientation that they were talking about. But for graduate students, there's not really a sort of central university-wide orientation session for new graduate students. Some programs however, will have their own orientation sessions, others won't. If there is going to be an orientation session offered by your particular program, your department will probably be in contact with you about that and when that will be offered. As the other panelists were mentioning, you want to touch base with your departmental advisor to make sure that you are registering for the classes you need and in the order you need to take them. Most programs will assign advisors based on perhaps a research interest, or sometimes you could just something as simple as like a number set, in which case it's usually spelled out in your decision letter, which you can always refer to and see if they mentioned that. Some programs will not, and they'll just sort of have open advising once you arrive. If you have questions, they'll route you to whichever advisor they think is going to be the best fit for your particular type of question. We do get a fair number of questions about funding. Just as a reminder, the PSU scholarship application opens on October 1st. It's a centralized scholarship application for the university. So most scholarships available through PSU are going to be applied for through this particular application. That said, you might want to check our website. We have kind of general information about other scholarships and funding opportunities. And by the same token, you also would want to check with your academic programs and departments. Often they'll have their own scholarships or other types of funding available through them, which the graduate school might not know about. So if you don't find maybe a good fit for scholarships, that kind of thing, on the graduate school website, certainly feel free to check with your programs. And at the same time, you can also check with student financial aid and financial services, and they'll have more information about what scholarships may be available for you. In addition, as we were also discussing earlier, it is important that we get all of the official documents that are being requested. Normally, you should be receiving emails, I believe, about every 2 weeks saying, hey, we need your official transcripts from this university, we need your official TOEFL scores, we need an official copy of your degree certificate. So basically, the graduate school allows admitted students to take their first term of classes without any sort of official documents on file. But in order to register for your second term, we'll need to have those on file with us. So basically, you just want to make sure that those are turned into us, preferably before November 1st, because winter registration for graduate students will open shortly after that, and that will just give us enough time to go through everything, make sure that everything is okay, and get the holds off your records. And briefly, I do notice that we have a lot of Indian graduate students in the session today, and because of the way Indian higher education works, I just want to briefly address some of the document requirements for Indian students. So basically, we would request transcripts, but usually for Indian students, we'll need your mark sheets, especially if you did a BA or Bachelor of Engineering or Bachelor of Technology program. Long story short, we would need the copies of your mark sheets and your degree certificates, all attested and sealed by the Controller of Examinations at your university. The degree certificates will pretty much always need to come from the universities. However, we can accept mark sheets if they're coming from an autonomous college. But unfortunately, if you attended an affiliated college, we would need pretty much all the documents to come from the university. We also recognize that, especially with COVID going on and with lockdowns happening in various countries, it can be difficult getting official documents into us. So if you're having trouble requesting those documents, please let us know, and we can let you know if there's any sort of arrangements or something, if there's anything that we can do to kind of work around those difficulties. And finally, if you have any questions about admission or document requirements, always feel free to reach out to us at gradschool@pdx.edu. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Go.
Thank you, Mike. So next, I would like to hand the mic to Emmanuel, one of the international student mentors who is a big part of our team in welcoming new international students.
So, hi everyone. My name is Emmanuel. I'm an international student mentor leader at PSU. And the essential goal of the ISMP program is to reach out to incoming international students and, provide answers to their questions and also their concerns, and also give them important information that they need to take note of. And one other thing is to assist new international students in transitioning from their respective countries into the US system and also into the Portland State University system also. And there are so many people that encompass, the ISMP program encompasses a lot of things, and there are so many people involved, the international student life advisors and the mentors themselves. And I'm 100% sure that they must have reached out to you already. So if they have sent out their emails to you, please do respond, because they are very, very useful resource that you can get information from. And also it's to actually build a sense of belonging. They can help you to gain the mutual trust and respect that you might have. And my advice usually is to please do not isolate yourself. The International Student Mentorship Program can actually help you to transition into PSU as a whole. So do not isolate yourself. If you ask questions, you will get a lot of answers, and people will definitely help you. That's why the International Student Mentors are there, and that's my short presentation.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Yes, I definitely echo that. Please do not isolate yourself. Once you come to the United States, mentors are available for you. We are available for you, so that you can have a really fruitful experience at PSU. Thank you, Emmanuel. All right. So we are moving into a Q&A. So please type your questions into chat box and ask us any questions that you have. Any questions are welcome. Maybe we did such a fantastic job that you don't have any question, or you are just so prepared. Oh, great. Okay. So there's a question. I have been vaccinated with a non-WHO approved. I have contacted Shaq, and they told me I can take vaccine when I visit US. I'm coming on September 5th to the States, and I won't be fully vaccinated by the time I attend classes. Is that okay? Ooh. I will. That is a good question.
Yoko?
Oh, yes.
Oh, so from my understanding, just getting your first dose will allow you to register for classes.
I've heard the same thing from Shaq. Students can contact, was it vaccination at Shaq at pdx.edu? Is that the email address? They have
It's
a
vaccines at pdx.edu.
pdx.edu.
I'll dump it into the chat.
There is kind of a reporting process and then kind of a deferral that you need to do in that case, from what I understand. But as Matt said, I think if you have at least one vaccine before the start of the fall term, you should be able to begin attending classes, register and begin attending classes, and then you can get the second dose, within the specified time frame.
Thank you both. Um, so are there any further restrictions due to COVID? So on campus, you are required to wear masks, especially inside, the classroom or inside building, and it will need to, have a social distancing as well. Um, and then also the vaccine requirements are definitely in place. Is there any other restrictions that you can think of, panelists? I believe when you are feeling sick, we'll tell you all not to come to campus. Stay home and get rest and feel better. And a contact check, which is a student clinic, for any kind of advice as well. Anything else I missed? Okay, moving to the next question. I've already got the COVID-19 vaccine, but should I need 14 days isolation before enter the United States? It's from Hiroyuki, and I assuming that you are coming from Japan. Panelists, do you have any information about this?
The only requirement before travel is all travelers, even US citizens, do have to provide a negative COVID test result issued no more than 3 days before they board their departing flight. That's a boarding requirement that the airlines are required to enforce. Travelers should retain that documentation even after they get to the United States. Indefinitely. I don't know that there's a period, after which it would be okay to discard that information. But there's not an isolation period either before or after travel that is currently required by the US government, as long as travelers are able to show, again, either a negative COVID test result issued 3 days before, or if the traveler has previously had COVID or has recently had it, but they have been medically cleared by a licensed medical professional in their country, there's a form that person can fill out to verify that would also allow them to travel instead of having that test result, which may actually not be able to be negative in that case. If you go to the travel page of our website, which I will find in just a second and put in the chat, one of the first things on that page right now is a link about that, a couple of different links actually, about that testing requirement that will take you to the Centers for Disease Control pages where they describe that in more detail.
Thank you very much, Josh. Okay, so the next question is, one of the 1 credit lab that I have enrolled for is under waiting list. Do I have to register for another class since it's under waiting list?
I would recommend that you at least select a backup option in case a spot does not open on the waiting list. Being registered on the wait list for a course, you should start attending so that you don't miss out on anything if people do later drop the class and a seat opens. But that will not count towards your full-time enrollment for the term. And at a certain point, either during or after the first week, you'll be dropped from the waiting list if seats don't open. So having a backup option would be a very good idea.
And just to add to the waitlist thing, my understanding, at least this is how it's worked in the past, and I assume it still works the same way. But basically, you want to keep an eye on your PSU email account, because what happens is when, for example, if the class has 25 people registered and there's a wait list of 5, if you're the first person on the wait list, when one of those 25 people drops the class, you'll get an email to your PSU email account letting you know that there's room in that class for you to register. You have a 24-hour window to register for the class. And if you haven't registered by that point, then the system will go to the next person on the wait list and you'll kind of lose your chance to get registered.
Thank you, Josh and Mike. So the next question is regarding scholarships. Do we need to apply separately to the respective departments if there is a separate scholarship than the one offered by the grad school, as well as to the grad school? Maybe question would be toward Mike.
The graduate school doesn't really have a lot of its own scholarships, really. We just kind of provide that information on our website just as a resource for graduate students. So probably your best bet would be checking with your individual programs. Academic units will typically have much more funding opportunities for students. So you check with them. Feel free to look at our website. We will have some information on there. You may find something that will work for your situation or your program or your background. But for the most part, the department's probably going to be your best resource, or potentially also student financial services and scholarships.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that?
Sure, Emmanuel.
Yeah, it's like Mike said, the departments are usually the best bet. Like for example, in chemistry, we have some scholarships that are usually that just pops up from somewhere, or maybe donors just gave out some money, and like you also have fellowships, travel grants. You can only get to know that from the department, and usually they're in-house applications.
Great, thank you. And through our office, International Student Scholar Services, we do have 2 or 3 scholarships available for international students, ICSB, ISRS, and Keith Morton Scholarship. So we will definitely share the information with you with the slides and recording so that you can take a look at it and then when you will be able to apply for these scholarships. Right, thank you. So the next one is probably for Josh. Does the NIE waiver given to F1 visa holder allow several entries in the United States? Example, if I leave for winter break, would I need to apply for another NIE?
That would also be for multiple entries and for an extended period, up to 12 months. So if you travel home during the winter break, you should not need a separate waiver in order to return for the winter quarter if the travel restrictions are still in place.
Thank you, Josh. So the next question is, do I have to register for that just for the first dose again? So I'm assuming that this is about COVID-19 vaccine through PSU. And we do have a survey that was created by SHAC, the student clinic, so that you can answer those questions. And that's a kind of like a way for you to register for the doses as well. Right? So next question is for Emmanuel. Could you please talk about initial challenges or adjustment? For example, whether the locality around PSU and the support that ISMP provides?
Yeah. I mean, initially, like I said, do not isolate yourself. When I first came, I did isolate myself a lot. So instead of having help, my mentor was always willing to help. He would ask me questions that I should be the one asking, but I just kept things to myself. I came from Africa. We keep things to ourselves. We do things ourselves. So I brought in that mentality, and it really, really slowed things down for me. You don't want to do that. And the ISMP program helps you to navigate sometimes some very difficult situations, because they can help you find resources that you don't already know. It can help you get in touch with people, like talk to this person. And I mean, I had an encounter also with Mike then, and it was really, really helpful. If I was just navigating my emails and not actually going there to actually speak to him and all that, it would have been difficult, because people like Mike back in my home country are always very difficult people. So I came here with that mentality, but here things are quite different. So that's why I said, do not isolate yourself. If you talk to people, you can get help. And concerning the weather, I've loved Portland weather for so long because it's usually very hot back home in Africa, but here it's hot also in the summer, but the weather is generally acceptable to me because it used to rain a lot, which hasn't happened this year. So, but I think the ISMP program helps you to navigate even some issues that you think might be tough for you. They would know the right people to contact and just direct you to do things that will actually make life much easier for you. So
Great. Thank you, Emmanuel. So we are actually running out of time. So the three questions that we have now, well, we will definitely answer those questions in the email that will be shared with you after the presentation. Okay. And I hope that will work for you all. And then if you have, specific questions, please email us, and then we do have a information, contact information there, so that you can definitely reach out to us when you have questions. All right. And then we will send you a feedback form, so please submit it so that we can improve our webinar next time. And please join us our next webinar about housing and student life at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, August 18th. And then the next one, the third one, is Advisor Q&A and a Mentor Connect. So that's coming up on September 1st at the same time. So thank you very much again for participating in this session. And we are looking forward to having you at our next webinar. Take care.